What's up guys, Andre here, and today I'd like to take a look at Vue Native for creating native mobile apps for Android and iOS. Vue Native was released recently and is the latest contender in building mobile apps using web technologies, specifically Vue.js. Vue Native is just a wrapper around React Native, and all your Vue code eventually gets compiled down to React Native code. So because of this, it definitely helps if you are at least somewhat familiar with the React Native ecosystem. If you're not familiar with React Native, don't worry. The docs for Vue Native are pretty good, and I'll try to keep everything very simple. I've actually been diving deep into React Native recently, so for any issues I ran into for Vue Native, I just referred to how it will be done in React Native, and usually that solved my problem. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Let's get everything installed and we'll play around and create an app. So the first step is to install the CLI tool. I've already done that, so I'm not going to do that. Let's just check if I have what version I have. Vue Native. Okay. And the next step is to Vue Native init and the project name. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to call it Vue Native example. Actually, you might have to have the create React Native app running as well, the CLI for that. So create React Native app. Yeah, you probably have to have this tool installed as well. All you have to do is npm install -g create React Native app. Okay, that's done. Let's go into it. And I'm going to be using the iOS simulator because I find that it's a bit faster. So npm run iOS. And if it doesn't work, just give it another try. I found that this has been happening. So just try again. Okay, so there we have it running. So since it piggybacks off of Create React Native app, we have Expo installed, which gives us really nice tools for working with our app. For example, if you wanted to run it on a real phone, you just have to scan this QR code and it will update as you make changes. Okay, so let's take a look at the code here. As you can see, here is this component right here. And as you expect, if you change something here, save, then it updates here pretty much instantaneously, which is great. So let's just play around here. Everything you expect to work in Vue works. So let's go ahead and make a script tag in here. Let's make some data and let's put a message in here. Hello world. And let's just output that in another text component. And we can just do the double curly and do message, and that should work. There we go. So we are limited to React Native components, and the docs for Vue Native have pretty good documentation. So if you go into basic components, you'll see what we can use. So for example, let's just grab this image right here and just stick it under here, and that should work. Okay, let's do the classic two-way data binding example. So let's get a text input. Let's grab this. And I'm just going to grab this component. Put it in here. And change this to my input. My input. My input. And let's render out my input here instead of the message. and that should stay in sync. Let me just put a width on this, say 50 or something. Okay, let's do 150. Okay, and if we type in here, you'll see that it syncs up. Cool. Let's go ahead and put a button in here to see how we can respond to events. So let's copy this. Let's put it under the text. And as you can see, the components are kebab case or dash case, whereas in React Native, they're camel case. So let's change this to my button. And handle button. So the event is on press instead of tap or click. And we can just respond to it like we normally do. So just make methods, and I called it handle button. And I'll just change the input. So my input is button clicked. Okay. So if you click this, sorry, this should be this dot my input, and let's try it again. So if you click this, there we go. Okay, let's talk about styles and CSS for a second. For this component right here, you can see we can give it a class and we can just style it the traditional way. So that's really nice. In React Native, you actually can't use classes. You have to use CSS and JS, which I don't mind, but it's nice to be able to do it the old-fashioned way. So font size, and make sure for any of your units you don't use pixels, you just specify a number, so 20 or whatever. But if you want to do it the CSS and JS way, like React Native does, you'll see that you can do this syntax, where it's basically like an inline style, but you use CSS and JS. So you have to change all the CSS properties and use camel case instead of the dash case. So yeah, we can do that here if we like. Style equals, and then we can just do color blue and any other CSS property you want to give it. Font size 20. Sorry, you have to wrap that in quotes. And that should still remain the same. Cool. So change this. So it's up to you what you want to use. I'll probably be using both in this tutorial. So for buttons, you actually can't style it directly. And this is a React Native thing, because they want the style to stay consistent on either iOS or Android. So by default, iOS doesn't have a background. So if you tried to style this, it wouldn't work directly. So if I did something like this, style equals, gave it a background color, that would not work, like red or something. See, that doesn't work. We can change the text color, but that's all we're limited to. So if we wanted to style it, we can use another component and sort of just mimic what a button does. And that other component is called touchable opacity. And as you can see, it says it's a wrapper for making views respond to touches. So let me just grab this and we can just replace our button. So instead of the button, let me just comment this out. We'll have a touchable opacity. Let me just close that. And then there's still an on press event. We can just call the same thing. And within here, we can just have a text component. Call it my button. And we can style this however we want. So So we can style the text. Let's give it a color of white. And I'm going to grab this. Now we can style the touchable opacity. Let me just put this on its own line. And that should work. Okay. Yeah, I have to bind this so it's white. There you go. And if I tap it, it should still respond the same way. And we can like give it padding if we want. Say 10. Okay, cool. Okay, let's play with a flat list. So a flat list is just a component for rendering lists. So let's go ahead and try this out. I'm going to grab this and let's put it, just take that out. Just put it underneath the button. Okay. This syntax is actually React syntax, so you don't need these first curly braces. They have to fix that. There's actually a pull request to fix that. Okay. And then, as you can see, it says here, it's still using React. They haven't moved it over to Vue syntax yet. So let's just see it working. And then after that, we'll create our own list. Okay, so let me just grab this method. And then let's go into our methods. Let's put it here. And this is JSX. This is missing a closing tag. So let's close that. This has to be item.key. And we actually have to import React here, which is not ideal, but they should fix it soon. But let me just show it to you working. React. And then we have to import that specific text component from React Native. And that should work, hopefully. And there you go. It rendered out those two items, which we just hard-coded from the documentation right here. So let's actually change this to an array of data. So I'm going to change this to countries. And I'm going to paste in some code, which I actually took from my other video that takes a look at native script Vue, which is another library for building mobile apps for Vue. So I'm just going to go into our data. It's going to paste this countries array in. And it's just an array of countries and images. So countries here, and then down here should be item.name. And that should render out that list of countries. Cool. Okay, let's make our own list and not use this flat list. So I'm going to just remove this. And just keep that comment there. I'm going to not import React. And let's get rid of this flat list. So just think of it like we're in web and we can't use ULLI. So how would we make that work? We just use a bunch of divs and spans and would just style that accordingly, right? Okay, so let's do that. But instead of divs, we can just use a view tag or whatever you want to use. We'll use view. And we are going to iterate over that using v4. And we want the country and the index. And we're iterating over the countries array. And we'll just give it a key of index. That's why I'm using that index there. And let's just render it out using a text component. And we can just do country.name. And that should render it out. And there we go. Okay, I kind of want some borders on like the top and the bottom of each item. So let's give this a class. I'm going to use classes here. A a border. And let's just go down here and style it. So I'm going to do border and border bottom width of 1, border color of, I don't know, gray or something. And see how that looks. Let's give it a width of 100%. Okay, that's looking better. And let's give it some padding. Cool. Okay. Okay, now we can't scroll here. So to fix that, we can just wrap this in another component called a scroll view. So let's go ahead and try that out. So scroll view, and let's see how that looks initially. Okay, and now we can scroll it. Let's just style that. It's going to do it inline here. Style equals, let's get a width of 100%, 100%, and see how that looks. Okay, that looks good. And let's see if we can scroll it. And we can, cool. Okay, now I want to have the image show up here beside the text. So how are we going to do that? Let's make use of Flexbox. So we're going to have a flex container. So we're going to make another view. And we're going to wrap this. And one flex item is going to be the image. And the other is going to be text. So image will go here. Let me just put a class on this first. I'm going to name it flex container. And all that's going to do, I should just do the inline. It's only 2 styles, but whatever. Flex container. It's going to be flex direction is going to be row. And align items is center. And I am going to put the image in here now. So image. Actually, we don't need that. We just can self-close it like that. And the source is going to be, it's going to be the country.image src. And let's style it as well. So it's going to be width of 40. Let's make it 25. Height 25. Border radius of 25. And margin right of 8. And let's see how that looks. Cool. And now you see the images showing up. Let's make the images bigger. Let's make it 40. There you go. That looks good to me. And we can scroll and we have this list of countries. And if you want a border top here, we can just manually add one here. I'm just going to paste it in to save some time. And yep, that looks pretty decent. Now I want to be able to tap it and to be able to grab whichever one I tapped. So how are we going to do that? Let's change this view to a touchable opacity component. And we can give it an onPress event. So onPress equals, and let's give it an arrow function. And let's give it handle list tap. And we're going to pass in the country. So let's go ahead and make that method right here. Handle list tap. We're taking in the country. and let's just console log the country name. Okay, so if you bring up the console, let me just tap a few. Australia, Belgium, Bulgaria, and there they are right there. Cool. Okay, now let's talk about transitioning between pages. So if we go into the docs, you'll see a section here for Vue Native Router. And this is based on React Navigation, which is the standard library for doing page transitions. So let's go ahead and install it. So npm install. And that screwed up our app. And this happened when I did this at first. So we are going to have to npm install everything again. Okay, let me just run the app again. Okay, so everything's working again. So the way this React Navigation works, or Vue Native Router works, is you have to define a stack navigator, and this has to be defined in your entry point. So if you look at our code, there actually is no main.js or index.js. The entry point is actually our app.vue file. So let's go ahead and duplicate this. I want to call what we've been doing so far, let's call it main.vue. And now app.vue is our entry point. And we can do what this React Navigation is asking us to do. So it wants to do that for our template. So let's do that. Okay. For our script, let's copy that. And this right here is our list of all of the screens in our app, and this is what the default screen is going to be. So let's go ahead and import main. Let's call it main screen from main. Okay. So now we can do something like this. We only have one screen. We'll add another one in a second. So main screen, and the initial route name is main, and that should work, hopefully. Let's see if it still works. Okay, so it does. So let's add another screen and let's transition to it. So I'm just going to make a new one called another.vue, and all this is going to have is another screen. Sorry, let's make a text field. Text, another screen. Okay, that's fine for now. And let's see how to transition, moving in between screens. So all we have to do is call this navigation navigate to the screen we want. So let's go ahead and click this button and let's go to that screen. So back here in main, so I think it was called handle, handle button. Just put it underneath here, and it's called main. And we also have to accept props. Yeah, we have to do this. So let's grab this and define the props in our component. So where am I putting that? Right here. And let's see if that works. So I'm going to click this My button. Oh, sorry. I transitioned it to the same screen. There should be another. And I also have to add this here. So let's call it another. Let's call it another screen. And let's import it right here. So like that, another. And that should work. Let me save this. And now this should transition to that other screen. Cool. And to go back, we just have to call this navigation go back. So let's go to that another screen. Let's make a button in here. Let's call it go back on press equals, and let's just give it an arrow function and navigation dot go back. And I think it's complaining because there isn't one root element. So I'm just gonna do this. And we also have to accept the props. So I gotta do that. And let me just copy that and paste it in. Cool. See if it works. My button, go back. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to do what I did in the NativeScript Vue video and make a mini clone of Reddit and have this pull from the Reddit API, and then click on it and then go to the other screen and show that image. So this shouldn't take very long. I'm going to start pasting code in because it's getting quite long. Okay, let's go back to our app. Sorry, our main view. And let's make a mounted lifecycle hook. Let's put it right here. And within here, we're going to make an AJAX call. And it's going to paste it in. I'm just going to use fetch. But you can use Axios if you want. And this just pulls from the AWW subreddit. So if you just go to that, you'll see all the information that pertains to this particular subreddit here. Okay. And let's make a new empty data property called posts. So let's just put it right here. And let's just make it an empty array. And that will get populated after this promise resolves. And then for our list, country, instead of country, this is going to be post now. This is going to be posts. And this source of the image is now going to be post.data.thumbnail. And the title is going to be post.data.title. All right, see if I did that correctly. And yep, it looks like it worked. But now instead of taking in the country, we're taking in the post. So handle list tab, this takes in the post. And now we want to transition to the other screen. So for now, let's just do it without passing anything over, but eventually we have to pass in a prop for the image. And it's called another screen. So let's just see if that works. Okay. Okay, so it goes there. So now we have to pass in an image prop and then display it here. So how do we pass in props? So to pass in props, just pass in a second argument here. And the prop name is going to be image source. And we can do the post.data.thumbnail as well, but that's kind of a low res image. To get a higher res image, it's just preview images. Again, just look through the API, the JSON that you get back, and then you'll see. So this is just like a different list of different quality images. And yeah, I spent time to get the correct one. Okay, so that's being passed through. This should still work, but now we just have to show the image here. So let's go back into our other screen and we can leave that in there. I'm just going to paste the image in. So it's an image component. I'm going to make it full size. And to get the prop, this is what you do. You use navigation, get params, and you get the prop name, which is the image source here. And that should work. Let's see if that works. Okay, let's see if, there we go. And we successfully have this Reddit clone built. Cool. So there you have it, guys. We've managed to take a look at the basics of Vue Native and build this mini Reddit clone in the process. I think this Vue Native project has a lot of potential and can only get better from here. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Okay, thanks. Bye.